I've also looked at teaching as a vehicle to try new ideas, of new ways to doing things on an intelligent group of learners, that is as the vehicle for the teaching research results. And in my experience, this kind of teaching is the most stimulated and motivating to students. The world's becoming increasingly urbanized, and light pollution is growing, which French Constant says could trick trees into budding earlier and earlier, but smarter lighting, like LEDs that dial down certain wavelengths, could help. Now surprisingly it's not after the polar bears that live in the Antarctic or live in the Arctic, and based on it's after the Little and Great Bear constellations that can be seen in the sky. Now the Greek also hypothesized that there would be the Anti-Arctic, which is how we get the name Antarctica, and of course it wasn't discovered until much later on. Art is the vehicle through which we understand that. Were you to take away art, what would be that mirror? How would we see what we are about? How would we understand what was going on in Paris at the time of the Impressionists when people were learning to see in a completely different way? You'll recognize some parts of the image. You can see the ribcage here, the bones, you can see the heart is the large bright object down here. If you have good eyesight from the distance, you can see the vessels leading out of the heart and into the lungs, and the lungs are darker spaces within the ribcage. The tropical areas on Earth are dry and hot, and are originally not suitable for food production. The change of the climate leads to extreme weather conditions such as flood and hurricane, which exacerbates the food production. Besides being very hard to imagine, The trouble with an infinite universe is that no matter where you look in the night sky, you should see a star. Stars should overlap each other in the sky like tree trunks in the middle of a very thick forest. But, if this were the case, the sky would be blazing with light. Neural pathways are more frequently used to make more myelin thicken. Increasingly thicker myelin, the faster the nerve impulses or signals travel along nerves. Therefore, a growing child is encouraged to receive input from the environment in accordance with its development. If you walk to the cages to the room, the rats that were poorly lit are highly anxious, hard to handle, aggressive, and the rats that were very well handled as off as little pups, they are much more relaxed, much easier to handle. The last thing that you need to make a combustion reaction happen is oxygen, and at some point, during the process, some oxygen is added by a tank that's connected to the calorimeter here. So we are going to burn a sample of the biodiesel that you've prepared, and get some feedback on the energy content of it. The brain is a highly integrated organ, which has multiple sections that specialize in different kind of processes, so we have parts of the brain that are involved more in cognitive function and other parts that are involved in processing of emotion and parts involved in seeing and hearing. Energy can be described as the ability to do work, where work is the movement of matter, when a force is applied to it. A closed system is a system in which no matter or energy is allowed to enter or leave. The first law of thermodynamics tells us that the amount of energy within an ecosystem is constant. Happy people tend to be social more with friends and have more interaction between family. Some people wonder if their social activities make them happier or their happy personalities drive them to be social more with their friends and families. Affordable rent is also an elusive right around Australia. We have very low rental vacancies. We see high turnover as landlords want to maximise their profits in tight market, and we see less long-term or lifelong rental, as we see in other countries and other economies. They can't take care of their children, so many children are being taken care of by others or simply neglected. Therefore, we can conclude that Alaskan natives are losing hold of their communities, cultural identities, and most importantly, their childhoods. So you can see how serious the issue is. This type of compensation plan is most often used when the industry you operate within prohibits direct sales, when salespeople work as part of small groups or teams and all contributions are equal, when your sales team is relatively small, or when your salespeople are expected to spend much of their time on other responsibilities other than selling. These questions represent different ways of studying animal behavior, and understanding the difference between those four questions are fundamental to understanding behavior, and indeed the whole of biology. The personal factors include people's belief on certain things, and their individual thinking about it, while the environmental factors include temperature, air pressure and the others thinking about them. In conclusion, one's determinants are affected by both himself and the environment. Researchers suggest that doing homework set by teachers is linked to better performance in maths, reading, and science. Boys, it appears, spend more of their free time in the virtual world. They are 17% more likely than girls to play collaborative online games than girls every day. The ultimate uses of this evidence to show that biological factors, such as patterns of cognitive developments, are closely linked to social factor, such as learned gender categories. These cognitive skills are learned both pre-school and subsequently at school.